Hello folks, and welcome to the very first of 6 videos in our Ladder PhD program, specifically designed with laser sharp focus for residential roofing systems and the professional tradespeople who must access those structures multiple times on a daily basis. Our program offers 3 separate features to assist both companies and individuals manage their fall hazard liability. 1, the training itself, composed of 6 lessons designed for developing safe practice from a perspective that only can be achieved through decades of field experience. 2, a proctored testing component to guarantee program comprehension. And 3, a database to verify training completion and identify those who have achieved the highest safe access standard for residential ladder use. It is currently available as a free public access video on ladderphd.com, also in a classroom training version through Reality Rope Access LLC, and coming in spring of 2024, we hope to have an actual hands-on program complete with demonstrated skills testing. Our lessons progress from an introduction to a discussion on ladder selection, setup sequencing, understanding fall prevention, key ladder accessories, and conclude by assisting participants with developing their own risk management plans. What we have learned about people in general over the last 2 decades is that most of them, even those with extensive ladder training, remain in the category of ladder illiterate. If for whatever reason you don't believe me, well then, let's consider a few basic questions that the majority of tradespeople who access roofing structures should know, yet seldom do, like the very best ladder lengths and duty rating for 1, 2, and 3-story access, standard OSHA ladder compliance procedures that, given the circumstance, could be dangerous to follow, or even the length difference between a 20-foot and a 40-foot extension ladder, and no, the answer is not 20 feet. Another why is because most training programs available involve 6 different kinds of ladders serving a dozen different purposes, yet virtually none of them could offer what we needed, which was the 2 very best ladder types in specific service to safe roof access. You may not realize it yet, but over the last 10 years, with the explosion of the ladder assist industry, a real ladder renaissance of new tools and techniques has taken place, and that is exactly what we intend to reveal. Our professional organization, the Association for Pitch Roof Fall Prevention, was created with the mission to both illustrate and review all resources available for safe and complete access of incline roof structures. And as you would imagine, the ladders we climb to access them is no doubt the most logical starting point. Risk management, as it applies to portable ladders, is the process of planning, directing, and controlling human behavior and materials to avoid or significantly curtail the negative personal consequences associated with ladder use. Our method of control will consist of the 4 principles of risk management that allow us the discretion to choose between viable solutions of avoiding the risk, reducing the risk, transferring the risk, and/or accepting the risk. The hazards we will focus on will consist of the 9 most common reasons for ladder injury, which is not roofing tradespeople specific, however, does provide us with a pretty fair outline for discussion. Hazard avoidance might be as simple as a means by which you could complete your job without physically climbing onto a roof, or discriminately selecting tools that are less prone to failure. Hazard reduction can be achieved with the topic-specific education on the best tools and techniques to prepare field technicians for the challenges they will certainly encounter. Hazard transfer is all about developing a realistic understanding of your own personal limitations and knowing how and to whom you can outsource a risk that is beyond your capabilities to safely complete. Accepting a risk should only be determined after careful analysis that the risk is comfortably within your ability to perform. Developing this skill begins with accepting the fact that no one has a greater interest or responsibility for your well-being than you do. Falls from ladders and roofs are currently the leading cause of worksite fatalities, and the best way to avoid becoming a statistic is to stop acting like the average person who climbs a ladder for a living. That said, let's consider some injury risk calculations for our industry, which sits somewhere around 1 in 10,000 per ladder interaction. A number that might initially sound pretty good until you consider how many interactions we will have over the course of an average career. Look at it from this perspective, and we can see that ladder use is like a dangerous game of chance. Play it enough times, and eventually you too will encounter a catastrophe. But risk management is not about the absolute removal of all risk because, let's face it, some bad things will always be beyond our ability to control. Risk management is about reducing the likelihood that bad things can occur. So if we change our odds for an injury from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in a million, we can now operate within the boundaries of reasonable risk. Believe it or not, developing a plan for risk reduction is the easy part. The real challenge is to engineer a process that is also both cost and time efficient. Ultimately, risk management plans are only as good as to the extent that the people they were created for are willing to use them. Okay then, let's now move forward by taking a bite out of some of the biggest problems which threaten our safety. For starters, let's accept the fact that people in general come in a variety of shapes, sizes, strengths, and limitations. Access situations that are very safe for some of us could indeed be extremely dangerous for others, so know your limitations and make a commitment to never exceed them. Secondly, let's acknowledge the fact that ladders are some of the simplest tools that we encounter, yet the complexities of their safe use represents a uniquely different math problem each and every time we set one up. This in itself is an issue that no one has the time or the ability to solve. Therefore, we must always choose to operate out of an abundance of caution. Currently, the largest and best free resource on ladder safety training is available online through the American Ladder Institute. And as you can see, the ALI has some pretty significant connections to the ladder manufacturing industry. Not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, nothing I have researched has even come close to matching their commitment in this space. However, that will bring us to problem number 3, which is a diversity of interests that can sometimes be in conflict with one another. It could go without saying that we live in an increasingly litigious world, and there are few industries that I can think of that might have more liability issues than our 3 largest ladder manufacturers, who all put forth very clear and unsurprisingly similar safety guidelines for using their products. File a lawsuit against their product for an injury that occurred when your ladder slipped out of place, and you might encounter the testimony from one of their design engineers, an expert witness of sorts who could explain to the court that despite their very best efforts to keep you safe, your failure to keep your body centered between the rails was in fact the reason for the accident. A real conundrum that might have you questioning our most common practice for access. Now let's consider the noise and confusion sown by training sources that are not related to the ladder companies, as represented by this picture, which is attempting to illustrate the correct way to transition from ladder to roof. An example that might look okay to the untrained eye, yet on closer examination, we can count 5 different infractions which were somehow overlooked. So allow me to ask the question, are programs like this helping our industry, or are they simply reinforcing our own bad habits? Well, you knew it was coming, and sure enough, here it is, because it would be inconceivable to think that we would offer a ladder PhD program without some practical perspective on the occupational safety and health administration. OSHA was created in 1971 under the U.S. Department of Labor, and as you can see, has had a huge net positive impact on the reduction of workplace fatalities. It was needed because Americans in general are a rather ambitious collection of people, so much so that they are even willing to perform some very dangerous jobs in order to provide for their families. And there were a fair number of employers who were willing to take advantage of this fact. But it is important to understand that OSHA only governs the employer-to-employee relationship. OSHA regulation does not apply to the worksite hazard exposures of an independent contractor or for anyone who works under their own direction. Another notable fact is that following OSHA ladder safety use regulations does not guarantee immunity from injuries, fatalities, or even an OSHA safety citation. Overshadowing all OSHA regulation is Section 5A1, which states that it is the employer's responsibility to keep their employees safe regardless of circumstance. A pretty good example of this occurred on November 28th, Black Friday, 2008, when a Walmart employee was trampled to death by a mob of shoppers. Mr. Demore, the man who lost his life, had committed no written OSHA violation with his actions, and neither did his employer. However, Walmart's general duty to keep their employee free from harm was unquestionably unfulfilled. This infraction resulted in a $7,000 citation, which Walmart unsuccessfully contested for the next 7 years at their own legal expense of over $1 million. Understanding that point is critical to understanding the significance of a qualified person, which is a feature of our ladder PhD program. A qualified person is a risk management doctor of sorts with the ability to prescribe access safety process because they are deeply in tune with OSHA, ladder manufacturer recommendations, established ladder practice, and all the nuance of our playing field. And that is a wrap for our intro video. We hope that you liked it and will join us for our next lesson on ladder selection, as it is a much needed topic that I definitely wish someone had provided me 30 years ago. In it, we will not just tell, but prove how you can select, save, and carry the very lightest, strongest, and best residential roof structure access ladders without committing the dozen or more costly mistakes made by the ladder illiterates of our industry.